Hey, it's Megan. This is my video response to Chapter 5, What is Stephen, the Riddle of Autism? This is definitely a topic that I find very interesting and very close to home because I had a cousin who started showing the signs of like he did the hand clapping thing, and he didn't start talking till very later on in his development, and he also wasn't very social. Um, and he was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, but I still have my speculations because he still does the hand thing. He's not a very social child, but he is like relatively social, so he would definitely be more high functioning. And he also, my cousin, his dad, talks about how in school he kind of gets in trouble for not paying attention or for not being on task. But it's because he actually understands the material more so, and he gets really bored, and so the teachers have had to resort to giving him like an extra task to do if they're on something that he knows already, which I guess is a good way to work around it because, I mean, you're not going to get a child who potentially might have autism to do something they don't want to do. So that's kind of cool. Um, I found it very interesting that the two scientists who first found it gave it the same name, but I guess it makes sense. Uh, I also found the fact that they can't do make believe very interesting. And then he goes into talk about how people kind of worry about it because, like, we kind of have this idea that each child's supposed to have a certain experience. But I think the only reason we find that to be a problem is we have this illusion of what childhood should be. And so it's I don't know, the fact that we like worry about that being a problem when on the other hand we can talk about how autistic kids seem to be very fascinated by like inanimate objects, which is something not everyone can do, is kind of more biased towards things we've created within our own society. So like, I definitely think the illusion of childhood is a real thing. Like, just because a child can't run around and pretend they have imaginary friends and whatnot, is it right to assume their experience isn't right or just as interesting? Um, let's see. And then the funny thing I found about this chapter is a lot of times when I was reading through it, I would come up with these ideas and I'd write them down, but then Ramachandran would like say it in the next sentence. And one of them was definitely how when he talked about how they have an inability to kind of be compassionate towards others and whatnot, that I wrote down like may lack mirror neurons in the next line. So it made me feel kind of good that I'm like definitely in the same like thought process as Ramachandran. So it's just like, oh hey, I'm starting to get this stuff. It was pretty good. And then he talked about how that in autistic children, their cerebellum seems to have a different structure, and he talks about how other people who have damage to that area have the like uncontrollable movement things. So if like they try to touch the tip of their nose, it kind of like doesn't happen. And he says how that's not really something that you see in autistic kids, so it's kind of different. But my thing is that so if that's damage to the cerebellum, to assume that a difference in the shape of cerebellum could lead to some sort of more like motor abnormality, that could definitely explain a lot of the sensory motor stuff that we see, like the hand tics and the like you know, all the sensory motor stuff he was talking about in the book. Um, the biofeedback I thought was the craziest thing I've ever heard of. I was so excited to hear about that. The fact that you like listen to your own biorhythm and that somehow could maybe help you like think about it more and focus on that specific area and regulate it. And my mind was blown a little bit. I didn't understand how smell is a factor in like social interaction or regulation and whatnot. That's definitely something I want to look more into because it kind of blew my world a little bit. I was just trying, I don't know how to wrap my head around that one. Um, let's see. And then the other thing I did, like right after, so Ramachandran said it right after I wrote it down, was the self stimulation. And I, like, as soon as he started talking about it, I'm like, well, if they have a problem with identifying the self and others, it could be a way for them to, like, feel their body within the space they're in. So it's like maybe they just don't feel themselves, and so that's like a way for them to like recognize themselves. I also found it kind of sad because I do like the fact that they call it self-stimulation instead of self-mutilation, even though in a sense it can be very much the same concept, that it's a way to kind of like, because they go to talk about how it could be a soothing effect for autistic kids because they're getting so much visual and sensory information at once because of their pathways being wired weird. And um, and so it's like I feel like it's a very similar concept where I do think there are people out there who cut themselves or hurt themselves because the pain is kind of their way of dealing with the world. So feeling that type of thing kind of takes them away from that and draws their focus back into something centered. So that's kind of interesting. But other than that, this chapter was super awesome, and look forward to reading the next one. Thank you.